Why does that robot have a podcast on its chest?
Because it looks cool! Welcome everyone to Super Audio Robo Podcast Z. I'm Ark, that's Nev, and this is the show where we recommend you the finest mecha content for your cultural and artistic development. And this one's actually all ages for once.
Yeah, we are talking about a thing you can probably watch with your kids if you want to get them into mecha early.
Although the language we use probably doesn't count as family friendly, but the show absolutely does. And it's Brave Police J. Decker.
This is a show I do not have a lot of knowledge on, actually. I believe you are the person who knows a lot more about this.
Yes, much like you, between the two of us have, like, a lot more immediate experience and knowledge of Gundam as a franchise. You could basically reverse that and have that be, like, I'm the one between the two of us that have the most deep knowledge of the Brave series. Mm-hmm. And J. Decker is definitely, like, one of my favorites of the anime from this short-lived, but, you know, as I mentioned before, all the way back in our overview episode, like, secretly influential mecha franchise from the 90s onwards.
Yeah, you call it short-lived, but they had, like, several shows that were like 50 episodes long.
Well, short-lived in the sense that, like, it didn't go beyond 8 years on TV. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I'm comparing this to the likes of basically what Toei is able to occupy on, like, TV broadcast time slots all year round with their shit.
Yeah. It's not getting new series like others are, definitely.
Which is kind of a shame, but also I guess that means, like, the onus is obviously on other companies to try and, like, step in and make, like, new TV mecha anime that can get the next generation of kids interested in this stuff. Mm-hmm. But for the 90s, that's what the Brave series was doing, and J. Decker was, like, right in the middle of, like, the halfway mark of the Brave series time on television in Japan. Mm-hmm. Quite a fascinating, like, blend of different influences to it. Stuff that makes it, you know, not just a show that's for kids, but also something that that gives just enough to, like, give adults something to like chew on, as far as like the show having, like, some depth to it in surprising ways. But we might as well explain, like, what Brave Police J. Decker is about. We can get into our synopsis. Mm-hmm. As advances in technology were made during the 21st century, there eventually came a massive increase in crime related to robotics and biotechnology. To counter this, the police department of Nanamagari City began work on a specialized police force consisting of robot officers powered by super AI to handle all robot-related crime. During the development of its first robot police officer, Deckard, Yuta Tomonaga discovers the robot by chance and befriends him in secret. This encounter would have ramifications on the growth of its super AI and all future robots, creating an unforeseen phenomenon within the Brave Police. A robot with a heart. And also an 8-year-old boy suddenly being the captain of an entire robot police force.
I mean, yeah, as you do. And you're going to hear the term heart a whole lot of that show, because I believe that's the entire theme of this.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of history to J. Decker in terms of, like, its placement in the Brave series because of its director and being part of the director's specific mission statement, I guess you could say, as far as, like, when he was working on, you know, 3 entries in this franchise. So we can get into that more, like, for the prehistory of the show. Like, just to summarize, you know, Brave Police J. Decker, it was the 5th entry out of 8 in Sunrise's Brave series, which was a franchise of kids anime during the 90s, made in collaboration with toy company Takara, now Takara Tomy, after they had merged several years later. So, yes, as a reminder for anyone that might have possibly forgotten, this is like a merchandise tie-in anime. Yep. Like, this is the sort of thing where detractors of super robot anime that don't even bother to watch that shit say that they're just glorified toy commercials. No. This is a toy commercial. This is literally made in conjunction with the toy company that did a lot of the Japanese toy designs for the Transformers series.
And you see a lot of that Transformer DNA in this show specifically, or at least I noticed it from the 2 episodes I watched.
It was there all the way back in X Kaiser, and the designs, you know, still reflect that even up to the end. But as I was mentioning, as far as, like, this show's placement in the overall franchise, like, this was the middle point of the Brave series, both in terms of, you know, just overall series that aired on TV during the 90s, but also this was the second of 3 Brave series that were directed by Shinji Takamatsu. Before this, he had directed Brave Express Mike Gine and after this would direct the Brave of Gold Goldran. And the mission statement I was referring to with Shinji Takamatsu, what he was going for directing these shows, is that while the Brave series is all about, like the primary theme of courage, bravery and heroism, that sort of thing, he opted to explore sub-themes that in a lot of ways get like a lot more overt mention, I think, than the actual theme of courage. Like, courage is more or less just implied to be a natural part of the Brave series that you either get that's what it is or you don't. Largely because all of these anime titles have the word brave in it, or at least the Japanese word for brave, yusha.
Yeah.
For the sub-themes that Takamatsu went with, obviously, like in Might Gain, it was justice. When he did Goldran, it was all about adventure. And J-Decker's sub-theme is heart, which more or less goes to, like, exploring the concept of what it means to be human. And I think as a result ends up being the most well explored of the sub themes, at least so far. I don't know. I've still not gotten to the end of Goldran, so I have no idea how much deeper it gets into the idea of adventure. Probably not too much, because it is way more of a comedy series than any Brave series I've watched up to this point.
Yeah, and I really can't say much because I have only watched Gao Geiger and 2 episodes of this, so I'm going to defer to you on this.
Yes, she is not kidding. Like, not every single show that we talk about on this is one where we have both all watched it to completion. At the very least, it's like, if it's one that we know is very good and feel strongly about recommending, we can get away with at least one host being the expert that has watched all of it.
Yeah, also, like, the era where I had a lot more free time to watch shows, this show was not subbed at the time, like a lot of other mecha shows. It hasn't, like I keep mentioning, it wasn't until like the past few years where people start to where we start seeing like a lot more of these shows getting subbed and being more available for English speakers.
It is definitely a blessing in the 2020s that like you can basically find every Brave series with like unofficial, fan translations that get the job done. Getting back to like the core theme of J-Decker, which is heart, the way that J-Decker decides to explore this idea in the best way possible is that it doubled down on a concept that was introduced back in the previous show, Might Gain, the idea of super AI as like the primary factor that powers the Brave robots, because before this, from X-Kaiser all the way through Dagarn, the first 3 entries of the franchise, the Braves themselves were essentially like cosmic spirits that like possessed inanimate objects that would then give them the ability to turn into transforming robots. Again, a very, very classic Transformers-like type of thing without just straight up being Cybertronians. But Might Gain kind of bucked the trend a little bit, because not only were all the Brave robots completely man-made and powered by super AI, but there was a bit more super robot DNA, like classic super robot anime style, like in Might Gain itself, because its protagonist was very much partaking in fights as well. Maito Shinpuji would pilot a vehicle that combined with other robots to form the titular Might Gain. But in this case, largely because our human protagonist is back to being an elementary schooler, and that probably would not work as well, they opted instead to take inspirations from police procedurals and dramas. Hence the title, Brave Police. They're making stories that are like very much inspired by police drama setups, but obviously kind of content details like switched around and made more digestible for kids to be able to watch every week. It would explore so many of these concepts regarding emotions and the human experiences, basically through the lens of the super AI robots that have to basically contend with the fact that, they were made as a police force. They have to uphold the peace. They're mainly used in terms of like having to deal with like specific robot crimes, but they also have very humanistic like qualities to them as a result of what is essentially an accident from the very beginning that they're kind of stuck with, and they are able to like explore those emotions and like concepts a lot deeper, especially because these robots are able to form deep bonds with other humans. Like Yuta and Deckard, our main hero and main Brave robot, their companionship is the one that gets the most emphasis stemming from this whole idea. But as is already known with the Brave series, like all entries in this franchise, as it was part of an annual series of anime designed for kids, the show would air on February 5th, 1994, and air for 48 episodes, which was like the usual average episode count for these type of shows, concluding on January 28th, 1995. Obviously kind of implying that there's like, some breaks here and there for like holiday reasons or whatnot.
Yeah.
Standard year-long running anime, but like still able to like leave its own mark in terms of like story ideas.
I feel like the vibe I got from what I watched so far is like they're also going through some very heady topics that you would see in more like adult shows, but they're making it more like something the kids would understand, which I'm shocked that's what they're trying to do.
When you watch the whole thing, you can tell it's very clearly being balanced between those and like one-off episodes that do get into more like overtly goofy kid-oriented gags and things like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't diminish from like when they're like, okay, no, we want to actually focus on real plot stuff because we have a new character introduced, or we're at the mid-season point and we need to like update the status quo in order to make room for more toys, things like that. But because of that, what I really do like about J. Decker in terms of like its historic importance and like place in the Brave series is that this is where I think the cast of robots really starts to feel like the first time the Brave series has an ensemble cast. Everyone is super distinct and stands out. That it's like when they're introducing a new character, like they make sure to give them enough time through like their own like introductory story arc, and then are able to still come up with like funny or interesting like one-off stories involving them after the fact.
Yeah.
Which we might as well get into because our primary mecha, there's a lot of them. As this is the Brave series, they are naturally like characters like through and through, and I would say arguably more numerous compared to just the regular human characters. I mean, just not to say the human cast is small or anything, but you remember the members of the Brave Police the most when you get introduced to them. We can get into that right now. There's a lot, so I'll try to keep it as brief as possible because this is not just the Brave Police members. This is also their combinations. They went kind of nuts with this.
There is a whole lot.
There's just a lot more individual robots with personalities, such as BP-110 Deckard, the Brave Detective, as he is called, and yes, the serial number 110, that is obviously supposed to be a reference to the fact that that is the 911 equivalent that you call when you're in Japan.
Oh, I didn't catch that, but you're right.
And also, the name is Deckard.
Yeah.
This show does not shy away from, like, Hollywood sci-fi cyberpunk references and shit that kids wouldn't get, but whatever. That's for the adults that's for the parents watching this show with their kids would be able to like just point at the screen and go, I noticed that.
There was a reference. It took me a bit to get in the episodes he watched that made me actually go, you motherfuckers, why are you referencing that of all things? What kid would get that?
Yes. But yeah, Deckard is our lead Brave Police robot, and as you would expect, because these are transforming robots, he transforms into a police car. Not the first Brave robot in the history of the series to transform into a police car, but it makes sense in a show that is all about a Brave police force.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting, though, that, like, in contrast to Might Guine and how there was probably some conscious decisions made to, like, kind of avoid just repeating what that show did, is that Mike Guine was very focused on his robots all being able to transform into some manner of like train, because kids love trains. They just wanted to hammer that idea home. It could have been so easy for all the following robots to just have like additional police or military vehicle forms, but they opted to just not go in that direction and just keep them super varied and diverse. So like you look at Deckard and like its vehicle form, and he is pretty much like the only one that like fits the image you have in mind of like a police robot. The other robots that we have on our roster, these next three actually are part of the same team technically. Like they're part of the build team. There is BP-301 McCrane, combat detective. There's BP-302 Power Joe, kung fu detective, and BP-303 Dumpson, wrestling detective. Just a few points. I love that like all of these robots, like they basically have a descriptor that is just some adjective followed by the word detective. And B, McCrane, Power Joe, and Dumpson are some inspired fucking names.
They're so good. All the names are great.
Especially when McCrane is, again, another one of those like American movie references, because you're like, oh yeah, John McClane.
Yeah. What fucking Japanese kid is going to understand these references, guys?
I don't know. Hollywood movies were really popular in Japan. I would not be surprised if there was another generation of Japanese kids like those, in America during the 80s that just had irresponsible adults sharing them like ultra-violent action movies.
Well, I think they were more lenient on that with their kids, but I don't want to say either way. I don't want to guess.
True. I mean, this is already in the middle of the 90s, and this is already kind of on the precipice of like some kind of fucked up like crime shit happening in the country that would kind of have an impact on media's like ability or willingness to like go real
dark,
gratuitous with some content. But the thing with like these three members of the build team is that the common trait in their vehicle forms is that they're all some manner of like construction worksite type of vehicle. Like McCrane is a crane truck. You can obviously tell as much because of the name being a pun. Power Joe is a power shovel. And Dumpson is a dump truck. Yeah. And also an important thing to note as well with like, you know, even when they're not in their vehicle forms, they do have distinct fighting styles and weapons. Like, we didn't mention much with Deckard, but like it's so obvious to tell with it being like a police robot that like its main weapon is like a revolver handgun. I mean, it fucking shoots out of its leg the same way that RoboCop's gun does. So it's like, yeah, that makes sense. But McCrane is just... He is a combat specialist to like no nonsense and uses a shotgun because shotguns are cool. But more cool than that is what Power Joe uses, that he just fights with nunchucks.
He's got a giant nunchuck.
And Dumpson, you know, the hint in his combat style is in his title. He's a wrestling detective. He's all big on hand-to-hand combat and pro wrestling.
Yeah, the vibe I'm getting with these characters is they're not very deep, but they're very entertaining either way. Like, they're not going to get any kind of character development, but who cares? They're cool.
They do get development, but, like, that development is in the context of human characters that kind of, like, enrich their lives, as well as, you know, just various one-off episodes that can, like, put them through various trials and, like, struggles that they may not have fathomed them being able to do, because these are robots that were designed originally to be very robotic and, you know, machine-like in their behaviors, but suddenly are acting like humans and have to learn what it's like to be human. Although, like, some of them are definitely, I think, do a lot better job of being a more straight and to the point and efficient in their goals than others, such as Shadow Maru, Ninja Detective, the first of ninja robots to appear in the Brave series. I've checked. I have watched so many of these shows at this point that you could trace it back to J. Decker itself, that it wasn't going to be this, and then they took a break, and then Volfog happened in Gal Gaigar. No, I'm pretty sure every Brave entry from this point on has a ninja robot of some kind, because Sunrise and Takara got the bright idea that, fuck, ninjas are cool.
And you know what's cooler? Ninja robots. And they're right.
Ninja robots. A ninja robot, in this case, that is like a sextuple changer. I shit you not, because it's like, it always has to have its humanoid robot form, you know, as you do. Yeah. Similar super robot type of aesthetic and very handsome faces, I must add. Other forms that it has is a dog form, you know, because it's the police dog of the group, as well as 3 other vehicles, you know, a jet, a car, and a tank. And very late in the series, it can turn into like a handheld cannon for like Deckard in one of its combined forms to be able to use. But still, one less form than Seven Changer from the Garns. So, you know, you're close, but not quite there. And that's at least as far as... Well, I guess this is kind of giving away what we are going to be talking about in the spoiler section of, like, in the latter half of this episode. But this is, like, basically the extent of, like, the of the Brave robots we do see. But we're not going to gloss over... like the remaining members that kind of get introduced later on, because this is what solidifies how diverse and crazy like this cast of robots is. Because there's BP-304 Drill Boy, Soccer Detective, who is Yeah, he his main attack is that he like kicks soccer balls. He's very energetic. He acts like a kid, gets on the nerves of everyone else in the police force, and he can turn into either a drill tank or a drill plane because drills are cool.
It is true.
Again, this show has a pretty good idea of things that are cool and just doubling down on it.
It knows what kids and adults would love, and they're right.
Damn straight. And as we get near the end, there's BP 601 Gunmax. Again, another inspired name. Gunmax is a fucking great name.
Incredible.
He is the motorbike detective. And surprisingly, Gunmax himself does not have a vehicle form. Instead, he rides a giant robot-sized motorcycle.
That's even better.
And he can combine with it as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
And the last one, which is a robot that wasn't even made by the Brave Police in Japan. This was one that was like made all the way in another country and got like basically transferred over, is BP-119 Duke, Night Detective. Because he was transferred over from England. He was originally stationed at Scotland Yard. He turns into an ambulance, and obviously you could tell with like the serial number, you could either look at that as, you know, just as 911 in reverse, or I seem to recall reading this, in this case, because I already mentioned with the significance of 1110, not 110, but 119, I think, is supposed to be like a separate emergency number that you call for like firefighting and ambulance services. Like 110 specifically for like emergencies that would require the assistance of the police. And so like with those 8, it really doesn't stop there, because we need to quickly go over the extent to which these robots are able to combine with each other in all kinds of crazy configurations. Like, the most obvious one is J. Decker, which is Deckard combining with an oversized trailer called the J. Rotor, basically kind of a newer version of what X Kaiser had in the very original series, where it would combine with a similar oversized car trailer called King Rotor. And that basically allows it to turn into a very large, white and black colored giant robot that the show's title is derived from. Then there is Build Tiger, which is the combination of the 3 members of the Build team that we discussed earlier, McCrane, Power Joe, and Dumpson. But there's also an additional combination on top of that, which is where Drill Boy comes in, turning it into Super Build Tiger. Basically Build Tiger, but with drills. This is where our opening line of the podcast came from, in which Build Tiger's first introduction has one of our characters fall flat on his ass in disbelief, look at it, and ask, why does that robot have a tiger on its chest? Because it has a tiger motif as well, based on the name. Super robots, you would be remiss in a Brave series if a giant robot, combined or otherwise, did not have an animal's face emblazoned on its chest. You are failing your assignment otherwise.
It's against the law. It has to have an animal chest of some kind if you want to be really cool. Or something.
Yes. Lion, tiger, bird, fucking whatever.
It's the law.
You can have it be a snapping turtle for all I care. That's fine. But getting into other ones, we mentioned as much. Gunmax can combine with his gun bike to form Gunmax Armor, just a bigger, more heavily armored version of the Gunmax robot already. Duke's introduction, slight spoilers, but whatever. It like me saying this just omits the rest of the important stuff that happens during the mid-season arc. But Duke can combine with Deckard to form Duke Fire. My mistake. I misread things. Fuck. Duke is very similar to Deckard in the sense that he has his own rotor that he can combine with, which becomes Duke Fire when Duke combines with the Fire Rotor. However, it's when J. Decker and Duke Fire combine that you get Fire J. Decker, which could have been called Great J. Decker, but as a sort of an in-universe gag, like the human cast basically goes, nah, scratch that. Like that's too cliche of a name because, surprise, surprise, all prior 4 Brave entries up to this point, their final ultimate combination of the main robot character has the word great in it. Great X Kaiser, Great Firebird, Great Dugarn GX, and then obviously Great Mightgein. So there is an additional, like to finish this off, additional combinations between J. Decker that can be done with Gunmax, which basically takes Gunmax and Gunbike and turns them into a huge shoulder-mounted cannon. And it also applies to Fire J. Decker as well. The amount of fucking thought
There's-
and like it put into like these combinations is insane.
I've also seen some of the attacks from Super Robot Wars. And
Mhm.
yeah, they are, you can tell they had a lot of fun thinking of these attacks and these combinations too. Like, someone gave a shit.
Yeah. Someone at Sunrise and Takara both. And you know what? If I was a kid during this
Yeah.
time in Japan, I'd fucking want these toys too.
Yeah, this would be a dangerous show if I watched this as a kid, because I'd be like, I want that. I want that toy. Give me that toy. Holy shit.
Give me Shadow
give
Maru.
me
I'll play with that all day, every day. That said, though, there are still some human characters, as we mentioned. But, like, we know how much the Brave Police themselves are the real star of the show, that we can't give the exact same amount of time to all of our primary characters. We can at least focus on a few that I feel are absolutely the most common. The first is our obvious human protagonist, Yuta Tomonaga, who is, like, kind of as I mentioned in the synopsis, discovers J. Decker while he is, like, still being worked on, under construction, and makes friends with him. You know, starts teaching him all kinds of different like human concepts and like ideas of you know, like basically like what is fun, emotions, things like that. And it's because of like that experience where after Deckard is complete and supposed to have his memory like formatted again so that he's ready to go like into proper service, the memories of Yuta, however, do not get formatted away, and it basically like reawakens and changes the direction of Super AI entirely, where this AI now has the capacity to basically have something resembling a human soul. And it's because of that, when it's discovered that this is the case, Yuta is given the opportunity to become the boss of the Brave Police Division, much to the chagrin of every other member of the police force that is a serious, no-nonsense working adult.
Yeah, just give it to the kid. That's fine. I'm sure he'll have plenty of experience. He'll do great.
Yeah, give it to the 8-year-old kid who is a very effeminate looking, I must add. I don't know how much of this is confirmed, but I want to say that there was like some mention before where like I guess like in the pre-production phase there were ideas of Yuta actually being a girl, which I think would kind of line up with how the human character designs in this show, some of them, not all, I feel have a very weird clamp energy to them.
No, I can see it. There's this like everybody just looks really effeminate and kind of almost fishy, I guess.
And I think it's also, that theory is possibly supported more in Yuta's case because he definitely has a lot of moments throughout the show. I mean, obviously, like he's an 8-year-old, like he's a very young child in this case. You know, it's very different from someone like Shinpuji Maito, who is literally a teenager. But like he's got like very childlike tantrums or emotional outbursts that feel like they come out of frustration of like of people older than him just not understanding what it is that he's feeling.
Yeah,
and especially with again this is just a weird joke thought in my head, but I just kind of imagined that Yuta probably would be the brave protagonist most likely to seek gender affirming care like as he got older.
You know what? Good for them. I can believe it.
Yeah. I bet Deckard would be in full support of that.
Deckard to be the one like pushing him to get it. Like, yeah, go for it, buddy. If it makes you happy.
All the Brave Police would, really, because I mean, like, for better or worse, like, because of Yuta's influence on Deckard's Super AI, and that became the new blueprint for all other robots with Super AI, is that there is a level of like childlike innocence and immaturity to them because they don't have like the full nuance or understanding of how the world really works. You do get some adults that have that same kind of innocence, though, such as Commissioner Juzo Saejima, who first episode you would not really think like you would assume that he's as like no nonsense as could be, but have like an air of like coolness to him. But then you get to the second episode when he's teaching Yuta about like how to give the combination command to Decker, and it's like, no, you don't just shout it. You shout it while you strike a pose like this, and it's like, oh, this guy's a total goofball.
When you think about it, he's us. He's the audience. He's the adult who loves these giant robots.
He is the one that retorts to someone saying that, asking why is there a tiger on that robot's chest? Because it looks cool.
And he's right.
Saejima has a fantastic sense of aesthetics. even if he goes a bit too far in some cases, which I think kind of explains why, even in his middle-aged status, he is still a confirmed bachelor. That is true, and like the reasons everyone says it is because it's his personality. Girl, they just can't handle it.
Can't handle his obsession, I guess.
And it's not just girls. There's at least other guys that can't handle his personality, such as the vice commissioner, Kazuto Azuma, whose existence for the majority of the show is to just be the biggest stick in the mud regarding, like, the direction that the Brave Police project has gone in, because Saejima is like the commissioner that was like in charge of the whole thing, and that means he is the one that ultimately decides, yes, I will give full command and authority of these gigantic robots with super AI to this 8-year-old elementary school boy. Have fun, kid. Yeah, Azuma is not pleased. Azuma is a character that thinks that who thought that he was getting into pad labor, but realized he is in the wrong show.
I don't think he'd be any happier in pad labor either. I've seen that.
Oh no, he wouldn't. SV2 would have like fucking drove him to suicide probably.
He would go insane dealing with those guys.
Oh man,
I can't wait until we talk about pad labor.
Yeah, pad labor. That is another classic if we want to get into like giant robot police dramas. But yes, Azuma is just, he is always there to show up, just be like big square chinned like asshole who's constantly trying to get this program back on track to being like actual, having the Brave Police be actual machines, so that there is no possibility for like human error. Even though, as the show constantly proves time and time again, it's that chance for human error that is important for like the experience of all living things. And like it or not, the Brave Police are living beings in themselves.
Yeah.
And that's like really the major ones. Like there's obviously like other characters that show up here and there. Like Yuta has 2 elder sisters, Hirumi and Azuki, that are basically the ones looking after him because his parents are spending most of their time traveling around the world. I can relate. But there's also other characters that like that do show up time and again, usually in relation to like the other Brave Police robots. Like there are kids at Yuta's school that he is friends with who very clearly become like good friends with Power Joe. Like Power Joe proves to be very popular with the kids, which good for him. McCrane also has like a good working relationship with like a JSDF like lieutenant, and Dumpson has like a sort of weird budding relationship with a freelance reporter, mainly because like I guess stubborn minds attract one another because both are very headstrong. Yeah, even Duke has a similar kind of origin in his case, where like back at Scotland Yard he also had like a human boss, much like Yuta was the boss of Deckard, that also kind of went beyond that into some amount of friendship, although again that's getting into like the mid-season stuff. That's for you at home. If you're interested to definitely watch the rest of the show, and especially gets to the mid-season upgrade point where a whole lot of emotions happen. So really,
we're not.
Why do we recommend this then?
Yeah, please. Why do we recommend this, or why do you recommend this? Because you've watched this entire series.
Just change the text in the document that we've written up from we to I. No, it's
sorry.
Yeah. By this point in the Brave series, already like 5 entries in, Sunrise and Takara have both been able to figure out like how to make a good kid-oriented mecha anime of this type, because X Kaiser, while it was the first, it definitely left like a huge impact on audiences that it was able to secure several more years of shows. I said as much in the overview, it's kind of a dry, like hard show to really like get through if you're looking for any kind of like plot development, because it is not interested in that at all. Future entries after that, as the audience grew older, decided to do the same and like have the shows like become more nuanced as time goes on. Dagarn, I think, was kind of one of the best examples, and J. Decker's like one of the next best examples after that because of what it explores with its themes and characters. It is still an extremely episodic show in nature, but there's a large number of mini story arcs and a sense of progress towards building up like this large ensemble cast of diverse robot characters and even human characters in all honesty. But a lot of that is, again, like the human character's presence in a lot of cases is to help build up the personality and growth of the robots themselves. I've always felt this was kind of the case with like the first 4 series in the Brave franchise, is that X Kaiser very much established the mold for kind of how team composition among the Brave robot lineup is supposed to be. And they stuck with it pretty well for a number of series. But when it came to their personalities and character arcs, it was hard to, like, I think, get attached to a lot of those robots because their personalities did not extend beyond, you know, I'm the leader of this sub-team,
Right.
or so on and so forth.
Yeah.
This is really the first one where you do get these very distinct robot characters who their appeal goes beyond just their role in the overall Brave Police squad. Like, you see the things that, like, they like or dislike, stuff that they understand about humans or don't, the relationships they form with other people. That's what makes this whole cast special, especially when particular story arcs dig real deep into the meaning of the show's theme of hearts.
Yeah.
It's asking questions about, like, the Brave Police, like, their sentience, their ability to feel the same emotions as their human masters. Stuff that is, like, somehow made easy to follow for a young kid audience, which is, like, that is commendable, like, in all respects.
Yeah, I feel like there's a real skill to make a show that's not just, like, that's made for kids, but doesn't talk down to them. It explains all these heady concepts, and it respects their intelligence, and it's like, no, we're going to explain it in a way that you'll understand, and we're going to trust you to understand it.
Yeah, because it's like, kids can be dumb.
Yeah.
That much is very obvious. And there's a lot of things out there that they'll, like, get attached to for very dumb, shallow reasons. But, like, if you're making something of this nature, it's like, there is no reason to try and, like, appeal to, like, those kind of, like, base ideas so often, or just shit it out there with the assumption of, oh, they're kids, they'll just eat it up, like, whatever. They'll just watch the TV for half hour and then move on with their day. It's like, no, like, actually make something to show to these kids with the idea of talking to them as if they were adults.
Yes.
Not adults in the sense that you are using adult language or whatnot, but, like, the concepts, and basically treating them with the understanding of, you should be able to understand this.
Yeah.
And if it turns out, you know, maybe if it is difficult to understand, you know, don't go straight to, well, you're just stupid.
No.
Just be like, well, okay, let's break it down. What's making it hard to understand?
Yeah. And also, like, this show is, it's a toy show. It's made to sell toys, and they could have easily have just made it that, but they were like, no, we want to make it something more. We want something, people to get actual lessons from this, which is, I think, is also, like, what makes this show better than, I don't know, like 80% of, like, 80s kid cartoons.
Oh, definitely. 80s cartoons that have obvious toy tie-ins just have, like, you can just feel, like, the cynicism of their production just rolling off the screen, because you know exactly how they went about making it and did not care beyond just the obvious reasons of just selling merchandise.
Oh, yeah.
And at least as another nice bonus in Jay Decker's favor for why we recommend it, everyone's favorite mecha animator, Masami Obari, was still on contract with this series up to this point, acting as a major contributor on key animation that you can see in, like, in the openings and, like, other transformation or combination sequences. He actually gets a credit as a guest mecha designer for some robots in the very first few episodes, but only in those, I should add. So, but otherwise, at least from what I remember, I do think this is the last time that he was actually, like, involved in any capacity on an anime in the Brave series. Like, I think Goldran onward, like, kind of... I had to double check the credits again for Goldran, but I know that, like, with Dagwan and Gao Gaigar especially, that Obari did not work on those, which we both watched Gao Gaigar. We know how, like, the major, like, key animation moments look, and they, while very dynamic, they don't have that specific Obari-ism that we all know and love.
Yeah, nobody pulls out a sword and makes a cool pose with it in Gao Geiger.
Yeah, they're more concerned with making sure that all of the transformations are as anatomically correct as possible, which it works. It makes the toys that much more impressive. And because of all of that, I've alluded as much, and, like, in the personal opinion of me, when it comes to kind of ranking the entries in the Brave series that I have watched, Jay Decker is definitely at number 3 overall in the lineup, with Gao Gaigar obviously remaining at number 1 for all time. and Dagarn in number 2. Gal Gaigar and Dagarn definitely have like more aspects compared to Jay Decker of having like a long-running narrative. The Dagarn throughout the entire show and Gal Gaigar primarily in the second half. But Jay Decker, even with how much more episodic focus it is, because of the themes that it explores and how it's able to convey it so well for like its intended audience, that it manages to still be engaging even when you're going through like a bunch of one-off episodes that might focus on specific character combinations that you don't see anywhere else. I guess to kind of wrap this up, because this recommendation obviously comes very highly. Even your co-host here also has come away very highly from it, and that's just from 2 episodes.
Yeah.
The question is where to watch the rest of this. Well, this is unfortunately one of those where there is no official like international distribution for this yet in any way, because of the Brave series, Gal Gaigar still remains the only one to get that luxury, since it is the most popular among international anime fans. But as we said as much like at the start of the episode, these all have translations. There's nothing to stop you from being able to watch this in any capacity. So, sail the high seas. Although you did bring to my attention in the notes that like apparently someone's uploaded like the entire series to YouTube like with subtitles, so you can watch it there if you just want to go the convenient video streaming route.
Yeah, that's how I ended up doing it. I was just checking YouTube and I was like, I wonder if they have this. And it turns out, yeah, they do. And they also have the other Brave series as well. Some soul just put it all up on YouTube.
Obviously, if you were just getting the Japanese media releases and did not care about if you were getting it raw or not, obviously you'd be able to get DVDs or Blu-rays, over there in that territory. But internationally, like your options are a lot different. Let's just hope Discotech can get it in their hearts to start bringing over some of these other stuff. Please, Discotech, please bring over Dagarn and Jay Decker, so I have more reason to recommend these 2 shows to everyone I know.
Discotech, I see some of the shit you've released. You could do the Brave series. Come on, you've done worse.
Yeah. You've done deep polls plenty of times. It's fine. Sunrise would probably be happy to have more people aware of the other Brave series besides Gal Gaigar.
Yeah.
Like again, like this whole franchise has such a long-lasting impact in Japan already, where even if they don't make a new TV anime for it, like it's still able to get through like just on the memory of like kids from the 90s watching it and like sharing it with their kids now, because they're obviously like old enough to be parents 30 plus years later or some shit.
Also, you fuckers released the J9 trilogy. You released Brygar. Who the fuck knows what Brygar is except for us? I know Brygar.
I didn't even know what Brygar is. You got me beat there.
Oh shit, I can't believe I actually know a mecha series you don't know about.
There you go.
Wait, you don't even know the J9 trilogy?
I think I might have heard the name, but I mean, if we were talking about trilogies, I've heard of the Robot Romance trilogy.
Oh my god. Well, we have found out that I know a mecha series that our kid doesn't know about. I'm shocked.
It's weird. I always seem to assume that you actually know a lot more about other shows than I don't, just because I think it's more a case of like the directions that we have gone in over the years as far as mecha content we have engaged with are like very clearly different paths. I mean, for fuck's sake, I've steered away from like a lot of Major Gundam entries for so long because my priorities were like on other shows from the 80s or 90s, whereas you basically like were very quick to like get all the important knowledge you needed from like watching the Universal Century Gundam and like all of its successors.
Yeah, I went into that shit like straight away.
Yeah, funny tangent aside regarding our knowledge of this entire genre. Yes, just search the internet. You'll find Jay Decker. The subtitles that are out there for it are good, and watch it. Obviously, being a year-long anime series based on its original like production, don't feel the need to binge it all the time. You're not gonna get it all done in the weekend, not unless you like forego all other adult responsibilities. But, just watch when you have time, because at the very least, when you know that you get into like a mini story arc of some kind, you can focus on just watching those specific episodes back to back and then take a break and move on to the next one when you're ready. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be missing too much out of, like, otherwise. And speaking of, we got to get into our spoiler discussion because our highlights is one of those mini story arcs. And dare I say, barring the mid-season story arc, this is the next best one.
I can't wait to talk about these because I love them. I like them a whole lot, actually.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, if you want to stick around and listen to this, even if you've not watched Jay Decker up to this point, that's fine. Hopefully our discussion of these 2 episodes will be able to convince you to seek out Jay Decker and watch it. Otherwise, stop this episode and watch it right now, or at least watch up through episode 11. Just gonna say that because 10 and 11 are our 2 episodes. Just to give you a hint as to like what it is we're gonna be talking about. So we'll see you on the other side, everyone.
See you, everyone.
All right, who's ready for some ninja robots?
I'm glad you picked the episodes that introduced the ninja robots. Oh, man.
So our episodes are part of like a story arc that is all about the introduction of Shadow Maru, who's obviously, as we mentioned, like during our discussion of the primary mecha, is one of the key members of the Brave Police, like throughout the rest of the series. And these 2 episodes all have to do with basically like his formal introduction and the sort of stakes that the Brave Police have to contend with as they have to deal with another ninja robot that is having a clear mental crisis. But I guess before getting into the details of the episode itself, we might as well give mention to one thing that is interesting about the opening sequence that plays every time you start an episode of Jay Decker. This, I think, is the only anime I can recall that does the live-action opening method of freeze-framing on its cast members while displaying their name and role. No actor name, though, which I think is an extra missed opportunity, but you can tell this is done entirely because police dramas do this shit all the time.
Yeah, they are very dedicated to their theme, which I can respect.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opening, and it only like adds more and more of the Brave Police members to like the opening animation itself as the police force gets bigger. So that's also like a fun thing to watch over time, where even if the song remains the same, the visuals do update to reflect where you are currently in the show, which is always appreciated. Our episode's opening does a good job of building intrigue around a number of factors because it starts with a very Yakuza-looking dude with his girlfriend in a smart car that gets suddenly accosted by a mysterious robot that busted up and then flies away with like jet scrander-looking wings. This robot, as we will find out, is known as Kagero. So there's already intrigue as to who this robot is. There's a mysterious group that is currently like following Kagero and trying to capture him. There's also another mysterious robot that seems to be tracking where Kagero is going, but not for the purposes of capturing him. And all the while, the Brave Police are called in to solve this because this is another robot-related crime that they have to solve.
Also, watching this is nothing new with the episode, but it just kind of reminded me that old anime does not give a shit about flashing seizure lights. They don't care.
Yeah, we didn't have that one Pokemon episode yet to give everyone a wake-up call.
No, in fact, I'm still going through Votums currently, and every time you go through that episode, that opening, it ends with it just giving you the biggest seizure. But anyways, we're not talking about Votums yet.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, as long as it's just like very brief white flashes, I guess that's fine. But that's only because I have been so inundated from playing light gun shooters growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So like, as the episode goes on, you know, we already have like our main intrigue. There is like a theme going on at the start of this story arc, and that is kind of like getting back to how people are kind of viewing robots and technology like as a part of their daily lives. Because one thing that is being a common factor in Kagero's kind of rampages is that he always seems to be destroying machines that have the ability to talk. Machine vocalization, which is something that is like, knowing how our technology is today, if we had that now, like as like standard in every actual appliance imaginable, it would be a nightmare, especially when they are just programmed to say this stuff verbatim. And it's like, no matter what you say to them, they cannot like respond in the same capacity as like a human would for an actual conversation. which is like the thing with when Kagero is busting these things up, is like it leaves you wondering, is he confused and trying to actually like have a conversation with them, or is he being like real insulted by the idea that like these appliances are able to speak like he can, yet he is on the run for reasons that are very understandable in his current situation.
Yeah, even like earlier in the episode, there's a scene with Yuta and his sisters, right?
Yes.
Where they're having a conversation about, oh yeah, they're just like the Brave Police are just talking robots, just like the talking appliances we have. And you just like, they're not the same, they're different.
Yeah, and all the while, like as it becomes more and more known throughout this, you know, the other mystery robot that has been tracking Kagero is actually Shadowmaru. In which he is being the most like obstructionist asshole like to start the story arc, like until you get the full picture of what it is he's trying to do. Hell, even after you get the full picture in this episode of what he's trying to do, you kind of think it's like he is not being a team player.
No,
this is absolutely a running theme every time there is like a new member that becomes like part of the Brave Police. Is that there is a painful growing period in which the other Brave Police robots have to learn to get to work together with this eccentric motherfucker, but because everyone else is eccentric in their own way, that means they kind of fit right at home.
Yeah, I get the feeling there's also kind of friction when a new robot it like pops up, and then they have to learn to work together and all that.
And also some amount of friction as well, as you can tell, when they realize that Kagero itself, you know, is a super AI robot. It's important to remember for context up to this point, you know, being like a fifth or so through the show already, is that the robot crimes that the Brave Police have had to deal with up to this point have basically been either like manned mecha related crimes, or, you know, autonomous robots that do not have super AI and do not have the capacity to like think or feel the same way the Brave Police does. Right. So that's why, like, after that whole encounter, realizing what Kagero is and that Shadowmaru is like constantly obstructing their ability to actually apprehend him, is that that's where there's the crisis of conscience coming in. Not too dissimilar from, I guess, like if you were to have in any other mecha anime, if you try to like basically like condition soldiers that are piloting robots that are being sent into war to basically not think about the fact that the robots that they're shooting have a human inside them.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole conversation that you discussed, where Azuki's like not really understanding like exactly why Yuta's upset over the whole events, and that the idea that their talking appliances are the same as super AI is just not the same.
Yeah.
You did mention as well, obviously, like when, like as one of your observations when watching these episodes was just because of the fact that the theme of the show is heart, is that the specific word that they use
Kokoro.
They constantly refer to that.
Yeah, you constantly hear them say it, like Kokoro. The word Kokoro, like just I noticed they say it a lot, and it's like, oh yeah, they're definitely driving the theme of the show, like so that people understand.
Especially when it's like it's the Japanese word specifically. Because this has always been like a subtle thing that I've noticed here and there that I think makes all the difference in terms of like word choice in like Japanese media like this, is like when they decide to use like a Japanese word that perfectly describes like a universal concept versus when they decide to use the English loan word. Because it would have been very easy, I think, in a lot of cases for them to just use the English word heart.
Yeah.
But considering that heart in this case is meaning a lot more than just, you know, the organ in your body that pumps blood all throughout and things like that, you know, the biological thing or just the heart shape that we all know. Yeah, it's dealing with it more like on a spiritual level. It's kind of the same thing where it's like you think about how like Super Sentai or Kamen Rider, like those kind of tokusatsu heroes, more often than not they use the actual English word hero to describe them because of more surface elements that make them obviously identifiable, because they are basically Japan's versions of superheroes. Instead of spandex, they have helmets. But like if they wanted to use a word that describes them as a hero in a more deeper spiritual sense, they would use, you know, something like Yusha or another equivalent word that Japan has had for like pretty much its entire existence.
Yeah, because like Kokoro has like a differently like it doesn't just it means heart, but it also like reflects a lot more of the mind, the spirit, and all that. Like it's more, I guess, multi-layered in its meaning.
It definitely is. As the episode continues on, we do get another scene at the Brave Police HQ, which I forgot to mention during our non-spoiler section, that yes, it is just a giant-sized office in order to fit the Brave Police. They decided it was like dehumanizing to just have them sitting in a robot hangar all day. So fuck it, make them giant robot-sized office desks.
I kept the fact that they all have their own office desks and phones and everything is hilarious. Like, they took the time to build all that for them.
No wonder Azuma is such an asshole throughout this entire series. He probably, like, this was probably the straw that broke the camel's back for him. Thinking, like, what kind of waste of budget did you guys approve to build these people, like, these robots, giant office desks? Like, he's being such, like, a stick in the mud throughout this whole discussion because of the fact that it's like, we literally have a super AI-powered robot on the loose. What the fuck are you people doing? Utah, are you listening to me? Damn it, kid. And it's like, no, they're trying. It's like, shut up. They're trying to figure out where Kagura's going to strike next. And as it turns out, based on his previous actions, he's going to go and attack a trade show expo that is all about, companies coming together to show off their latest, like, appliances that have, like, machine vocalization, which, as it turns out, that's where Azuki is going to be. Oh, shit. We have a hostage situation.
Oh, no.
It leads to quite a tense discussion between Shadowmaru and Kaguro, because this otherwise would have gone badly if any of the other Brave Police had charged straight in, because it's at this moment that Kaguro and Shadowmaru are, like, their creation and their roles are officially, like, divulged to the Brave Police themselves and Yuta, because initially they didn't want to, like, get to this point because they understand full well what Kaguro is going through and why he's doing this.
Yeah.
And can be best summed with a question that he asks as he is holding Azuki in his hand and, like, a sickle to her throat. Shadowmaru, what's the difference between my life and hers? Boy, is that a loaded question to ask about the ethics between robots and humans to an intended audience of elementary school boys.
Bro, this is the kind of shit I expect from, like, Ghost in the Shell, not the fucking kids robot show or whatever. And also, it doesn't help that, like, they also, like, Kagura reveals that they were going to wipe his entire memory, and that's, like, a fucking terrifying thought. Having your entire existence, like, just wiped away. That might as well just be a death sentence.
It's essentially what Deckard was initially being put through, like in the very first episode, and it's why there's, like, a very, like, a brief sort of tearful goodbye as Yuta realizes that, like, his friendship, he thinks at the time, is being short-lived because Deckard's programming is all fully complete. He's ready to go into service. Now he has to have his, like, memory and memory banks all completely wiped so that they can make room for all the important police data he's going to be needing to refer to as part of his job. But it turns out, no, you couldn't extinguish his soul. Maybe you should have told Kaguro that is like, no, it's okay, because of this 8-year-old kid, your soul will still survive deep in deep within. It's all right. But no, it's understandable that Kaguro is very much not wanting to go through what he feels is, like, a death experience.
Yeah, it's I'm like, what kind of Japanese boy is going to understand these concepts?
But at least Shadowmaru understands.
Yeah.
And in the case of it being, admittedly another obstruction of justice in the grand scheme of things, Shadowmaru and Kaguro, like, because of, like, what they were designed for, it's like they are basically brothers. Even if one was designed to essentially train the other as the successor, he still does Kaguro a solid. He's able to work out a deal to save Azuki and just let Kaguro free. Too bad the escape was short-lived.
Yeah, it didn't really last long. He gets captured right away.
Yeah, thanks, Shinjo. Yeah, which Shinjo is our real antagonist for this specific story arc. And you can tell he is especially the antagonist, not just because of his brief appearance at the start of the episode, But when you find out him and Azuma were actually both college buddies, and he decides to invite him out to a graveyard to give a villainous speech that's like, hey, guess what? The Brave Police's time is at an end. You don't need to give them flawed super AI. I'm gonna prove the world how right I am.
Bro really just did pick a graveyard. He could have picked like an office or something, but nope, we gotta beat here.
He could have picked an office. He could have picked a cafe. Like anywhere where there would be like enough people passing by, like blending into a crowd that no one would notice.
No, we gotta go to the most dramatic place possible.
I mean, to be fair, any live action drama would have jumped at the opportunity to do something like this as well.
That's so true.
But back at police HQ, I've always found it amusing, if not a little sad, that Shadowmaru's default mode at HQ is to lie down in his dog form. He doesn't even have a giant robot-sized dog bed or anything like that.
Maybe just more comfortable.
He has a human form. Give the guy a desk.
Maybe he's just more comfortable being a dog. Ever thought of that?
That phrase is going to awaken something horrible in other people.
I do not apologize for that. Anyway.
I wouldn't either. But alas, because Kagero was captured, we don't get to see what exactly happened after he was captured. We get a very alarming phone call from Deckard's desk. Because when Kagero was let free, Shadowmaru had to make a promise, to just go into hiding, do not make a ruckus, do not cause problems for other humans, and I promise that you will be safe. Deckard puts down the phone. He broke his promise.
It literally was like a few minutes apart. It was like, bro.
Yeah, that's real rough timing.
Yeah.
But also, very dramatic way to end the episode. Mm-hmm. As we sortie out in the middle of the night to see Kagero resurfaced again, going on a rampage, and something is off. But that's where the episode ends. Gotta give you a cliffhanger before having shit just go right away in episode 11. It wastes no time starting where the last one ended, with a fucking hell of a fight with an emotionless ninja robot in the city at night.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the more standout fights of the series in terms of like its production, choreography, etc.
Definitely a very there's lots of good framing, lots of good action happening. It's just a good fight in general.
Fights amid like dark lighting, I think also does a lot to kind of, I think, raise the impact of like when debris is created as a result of like these big attacks, because of how the direction that it goes is, that it turns briefly into a chase where it essentially chases Kagero into like an underground subway platform where it looks like he's cornered, but then decides to just shoot his machine gun, breaking a hole in the street above and then bursting back out, which is sick as hell.
Yeah,
especially with the little smirk that he does, which is like, that definitely is like a kind of programming thing that I think, knowing Shinjo, was not necessary for him to put in there. That was just to make him a dick. Yeah. Because the whole idea is that Kagero's super AI that he had all throughout the previous episode has been removed from his body. All that is left is just a soulless robot that knows nothing but war.
And a robot that was ready to shoot a child.
And like a robot that bleeds quite a bit after it is finally stopped. Like, remember, robots bleeding oil is fine because it's not human blood.
Why is it red? Why is the oil always red?
It's dark enough in red that I think it's still able to look like oil, like a red and brown mixture. I think that was also helped by the fact that it is at night, so that everything naturally has a darker color. I am often reminded of, I think it was a bit from the director commentary for From Dusk Till Dawn, a movie that gets very gory in the latter half, to the point where like all the blood is actually green. And Quentin Tarantino makes the joke, okay, so the thing about the MPAA, it's not that they hate the idea of blood, it's just that they hate the color red.
So if it's not red, then
he's not wrong.
No, he's not. If it's a different color, then it's okay. Same goes for like YouTube.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Like fucking YouTubers had to literally resort to that shit when they were doing like Mortal Kombat 11 videos. But yeah, the fight ends like pretty tragically, all things considered,
with a knife to the gut.
And it is revealed at that point when they retrieve the body, that yes, Kagura's soul is no longer there, and it really does make you hate Shinjo all the more that he is like such an effective villain. Like, kind of as a personal note, I do kind of wish he was like had more of a presence throughout the entire rest of the series after this point, because he stops mattering after this story arc. I think part of that is due to the fact that, you know, he does get arrested. That much is obvious. All the villains gets what's coming to them. But also, you could tell with his like sudden coughs that look painful to him is that he clearly is suffering from some terminal illness, and that his whole like motive behind his villainy is that he is trying to like leave behind like proof of his superior intellect in a giant robot of some kind as his way of like living on past his mortal body.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of classic sci-fi villain motivation.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering if he'd pop up again, but I guess there isn't much they could do with him after this.
He does actually have one scene during the mid-season story arc, which is, I think, actually kind of like the actual best send-off for him, because it's him being confronted by the new major villain of the show, who is trying to ask him about, like, what do I do to make sure that I can make a perfect robot that is completely 100% evil? Like, no potential for good. And basically his response is to go, "You idiot, it's impossible. If it was possible, I would have done it before you did.
Oh, wow.
Stupid."
What a fucking response. Holy shit. Oh my god.
Obviously, I kind of embellished the wording somewhat, but that is very much like the intent he gets at, because by that point, the Brave Police are dealing with a lot more vicious super AI robots, because this villain is like in the pursuit of trying to make something that has the full capacity for evil with no room for sympathy or hesitation, you know, because that's seen as a quote-unquote flaw in the current like super AI model. That said, though, kind of related to Shinjo himself, Azuma, despite being a dick throughout so much of the series, does do something of worth, basically for the sake of the Brave Police, you know, just and keeping the project from possibly getting like shuttered completely, because this is ultimately a huge blow that they let a super AI robot go free for so long that it fell in the hands of someone that was willing to modify it and turn it into an absolutely destructive monster. So he decides to investigate Shinjo's whereabouts, his plans, knowing full well that this is going to be a personal betrayal on his end, because he's turning against, like, you know, one of his college buddies. It is one of those things you absolutely need for a character like this.
Yeah.
In any kind of show, where even if they're on the side of the good guys and are constantly objecting to how they're doing things, they do need to have like that small moment of growth.
Yeah.
You don't need it to be so much that it completely changes their character, just enough to let you know that they are not completely irredeemable.
Yeah, it's to show they have some principles to them, that there's, you're still a good guy in the end.
He is still a civil servant, and regardless of what we may all think, or what he may think about the police as an institution, he's still going to do what he thinks personally right. Yes, yeah, we got this far without having to allude to any all cops are bastards type of shit, but whatever. Yeah. I am willing to believe that unlike the class traitors in Paw Patrol, the Brave Police are totally good, or the only good cops.
I will give the Brave Police the only good pass here. Paw Patrols can go fuck themselves. They could go burn a trash fire for all I care.
This is the Superior Kids show, damn it.
I'm shocked we got this long without saying anything like that.
You gotta pick and choose when you want to be outrageous.
Yeah.
That said, though, as all that stuff is happening, because of what's happened with the whole ordeal with Kagero, Shadomaru is in quite a slump, that he decides to visit Azuki's. He visits the Tomonaga's house in a scene that results in some absolutely priceless expressions when he is in dog form.
It is some like cartoonish level stuff. It's great.
Just full on blushing and everything. Even Azuki is considerate enough to like pull out an inflatable pool and fill it with the same robot fuel that is like used as kind of like a drink nutrient for like all the other Brave Police, because Deckard, I forgot to mention, he's always parked at Yuta's house, just because that's how close knit buddies the two of them are. And also because, I mean, fuck it, the kid needs a commute to work somehow. Yeah, it just makes sense.
It makes sense.
But I do like that she's resourceful enough to make a giant robot-sized like water bowl.
You're not.
Yeah, maybe Shadow Maru is just a dog at his core.
Yeah, he's not beating the doggy allegations here.
Nope, definitely not. It's an interesting moment that I actually kind of forgot about the significance of until I rewatched these episodes. Because I may mention as much that with a lot of like the Brave Police robot characters, is that one of the things that like define them is that they all have like some manner of like bond with like a human character or characters. You know, because Yuta and Deckard is obviously the standout, and I mentioned with the build team that all three members also have like a similar bond that they make. You know, Power Joe with the kids, McCrane with like the JSDF lieutenant or captain. I forget what her rank is, but she is but she is military, and obviously Dumpson with the freelance reporter. I forgot that Azuki was basically like emphasized in this story arc to basically be kind of that human bond for Shadow Maru, but the reason I forget is because you don't get more scenes like this throughout the rest of the show.
Oh, really?
It's more like her role is more to kind of create that bond to like help Shadow Maru in getting out of his funk. Because as you would expect for something like this, that obviously leads to more discussions about kind of like the nature of like these robots with super AI, whether it would be of any benefit to like not have the super AI so that they wouldn't have these emotions. Trying to be all like, no, there's pros and cons to having like these kinds of emotions. Even when something's bad, it's like there's always like the other side of the coin that there's something good can come out of it. Things like that. But it doesn't take long for word to get to Shadow Maru that Azuma finished his investigation, his personal investigation. In a moment of swallowing his pride, went to Saitama and said, "I know who's behind this plot. It's my old buddy from college, Shinjo. He's with Excellent Co. He's working on like a weapon submarine known as the Abyss. That's where Kagura's super AI is. You have to stop him. I don't care if he's outside of our jurisdiction. Just do it." And yeah, that's basically what the team does.
Yeah.
You know, even though bureaucracy would otherwise try and get in the way of it, nothing's going to stop these giant robots. I mean, they're bigger than you. Are you going to say no?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I alluded to this earlier in a non-spoiler segment, but this is the part that made me go, "You motherfuckers. You named the submarine the Abyss. Is that over the fucking James Cameron movie?" And it's like, yes, it is, because that's the kind of show we're watching.
You know, if I had a nickel for every time a Japanese robot anime like had a reference to the Abyss, I would have 2 nickels.
Is there another anime that references the Abyss?
Did you forget episode 3 of Bang Bravern?
Oh, fuck me, I did. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, how did I forget that? I'm ashamed of myself now.
Oh, that's okay. We'll just strike this from the record.
Yeah, forget all that, y'all.
Yeah. But yes, Shadow Maru's not beating the dog allegations, and Japanese anime is not beating the Hollywood fanboy allegations.
Especially 80s action movies.
Like, for fuck's sake, I also forgot to mention in the first few episodes, there is straight up a news reporter that's, like, not really a very important character, just shows up on news broadcasts whenever they need, like, a convenient in-universe exposition kind of scene. And I shit you not, like, the TV news anchor's name is Alex Murphy.
Yeah, and there's that too.
Yeah, he dodged the bullet getting out of Detroit, I tell you what. So this is all the setup for the finale of our episode. The Brave Police are going after the Abyss. Jay Decker and Bill Tiger are basically fighting on the outside, dealing with like the armaments of the Abyss submarine itself, whereas Shadow Maru has as expected for a covert ninja robot, snuck his way onto the Abyss itself, trying to find where Kagero's super AI is stored. And yeah, you get plenty more scenes during this whole section where, despite being a kid's show, it is not shying away from the horrible implications of what is basically removing a robot's soul from its body. Repurposing its brain into an advanced like submarine weapon platform.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where I'm like, wow, we're really going for it, huh? Oh wow, these are some deep topics we're exploring.
Yeah. even having Shinjo come out in all his cocky swagger in front of Shadowmaru, just thinking like, "Ha, you can't do shit to me. That's your brother in that core. You think you could kill him?" And it's like, no. Turns out, like we said, after being formatted and reprogrammed as the computer of the Abyss, Kagero still had enough of his soul retained to save Shadowmaru. You know, just like with Deckard or reawakening to save Yuta during the first episode. And it just leads to Shinjo, as you would expect, having a complete breakdown that everything about his plans did not work the way that it did. Shadowmaru just like telling him what for, and then Kagero knowing full well that so much of his life has been ruined up to this point, and the man responsible for it needs to have his plans ruined, basically uses his power to sacrifice himself, basically autopilot the Abyss sub as deep as it will go so that the pressure crushes it, because it is sustained enough damage that, you know, going any deeper is going to fuck up the insides of it even more. Admittedly, as far as fights go, you know, it's not obviously like the best fight of the episode. That's obviously the one at the beginning. They kind of play their cards like pretty early in regards to that, but just getting to see Shadowmaru in action more, especially as they're dealing with like the automated like ninja robot guards inside the Abyss, is still pretty cool.
It is still like a nice like set piece to finish this episode with,
and a nice detail as well, kind of getting to how, despite this being a very episodic series, like it's not going to be so adherent to the status quo that it like basically goes, well, we can just move on like that never happened. It's like, no, there's an actual like pretty serious conversation between Saejima and Azuma about the fact that Shinjo, who was like the one that was like the principal designer of the super AI chip originally, you know, before Yuta had basically created the idea of super AI granting a robot a soul, that because of his ties to Excellent Co. and the data obviously being with that company now, which is like a global company, I'm pretty sure at this point, hence why like it's outside the police's jurisdiction, but they still went after him anyway. Like, they warn as much. There is a likely high chance now that there are going to be more crimes in the future that are now powered by super AI. So the challenges of the Brave Police are only going to get tougher from here on out.
Yeah, it's like signaling to you, the audience, that the enemies are going to be like the challenges are going to be way different than what we've seen before.
Yeah, which I do appreciate. That is definitely the best way to go about making a long-running show, where the goal is to have like a episodic monster of the week format, more or less, or case of the week, I guess, in the case of in this instance with Brave Police.
Yeah.
But as this is still a kids anime and lighthearted, you gotta have your comedic ender, in which Shadowmaru is officially welcomed to the team as the team's police dog, despite his insistence that he is not one.
For someone who turns into a dog, he sure pouts a lot like a cat.
And then tries to insist that he is a wolf, which leads to the inspired joke on Yuta's part, where is like it's okay, like, you don't have to feel so bad, Shadowmaru. We'll just build you a den instead of a doghouse.
God damn it, Yuta, you can't just say that.
Fucking savage 8-year-old.
Yeah,
God damn.
These 2 episodes kind of ruled. I like, even though it's like a kid's show, it's got the right amount of juice that kept me like engaged all throughout it. And it's like, no, I want to see more after this. Like, even after like we're done, I'm gonna still like go off and on, like watch a couple of episodes on my own time. That's how much these 2 episodes impressed me, at least.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even if like the overall like amount of story arcs out there do not like hit the same level, like, you still gain such an appreciation for the characters and their personality that, like, even when they're doing goofy shit, having to solve a crime in which, like, some fucking clown shoes duo decides to use, like, mind-altering rays that cause everyone in the city to become, like, super obsessed with, like, the latest fads in, like, the cringiest way possible. And when I say fads, I mean more like buying novelty Groucho Marx, like, glasses and mustache.
Oh my God.
Or wearing like full skin body leotards.
Yeah, that's the kind of goofy shit.
Again, this is still a kid's show. They kind of have to have those moments here and there.
Yeah, this is the kind of goofy shit I'd expect, if I'm being honest. That's well within
expectations. But then you get other goofy shit that is actually like even more my speed, in which Yuta has to like investigate like an underground robot wrestling ring because it's believed to be like. And then in order to do that, because it's supposed to be for remote control robots, he brings Dumpson along because he's the wrestling detective and has him pretend like he is a remote control robot as Yuta is like using a remote control that I think looks like a Super Famicom controller.
Oh my
I forget. It might have been another character, and just acting undercover like some boy genius with a wrestling remote control robot.
That fucking owns. Holy shit, maybe I should just go straight to
it. Also takes place in Mexico for some reason.
Why Mexico? I don't. No, you know what? I shouldn't question it. I should just accept it.
Yeah, just embrace the silliness when it happens and be impressed when it gets to genuinely good emotional moments.
Yeah.
Especially the mid-season story. Because, oh boy, Yuta goes through a lot.
Yeah, that's the impression I got is like, this show can definitely handle, it's going to get really goofy and silly, but these episodes have showed me that no, there's enough there where they can handle serious topics and emotional beats, like for real.
Definitely helps in part with just how Yuta, I feel, manages to be the most emotionally vulnerable human protagonist of the entire franchise, because so many of the other kid characters in this series before and after always have like this sort of like, you know, bright-eyed, excited, very innocent kind of kid-like demeanor to them, which like there's still a lot of that in Yuta's character as well. But like you even saw as much when there was like the dinner scene in episode 10 where like the outburst he has is like that is very much something where it's like he is a kid that is kind of like not afraid to like cry or wear his emotions on his sleeves, even if it's something where it's like it to the point where it sometimes makes it difficult for him to really like explain it to other people to understand.
Yeah, he's not a kid written as an adult. He's actually just a kid with everything that means.
Even with how ridiculous it is that he is basically given the role of boss of an entire police division.
Oh yeah, that part is still fucking ridiculous, but hey.
Oh yeah. Like you could get away with it if he was like as old as like as Senpuji Maito was in Might Guy, because he was straight up like a high school student. Like you could get away with that a bit more easily compared to a second grader. But regardless, yeah, Jay Decker is a fantastic show. I was definitely glad that like me recommending you this particular story arc worked out so well, because I think it validates the idea that like if I want to get more people into this and they are having reservations about like, you know, just the general like episode count or whatnot, I could just show this to them largely in isolation.
Yeah.
You know, maybe give them the briefest explanation about, you know, like who the main characters are, who the robots are, and then just let them go from there and tell them, oh yeah, this is a kid's show.
Yeah.
And watch them go, what?
Yeah. And also I think it helps that the barrier of entry is so low, because like I said, I just watched this on YouTube. I didn't have to go to do anything else to get to watch it.
Especially when, you know, the other Brave series that I like a whole lot, The Garn, you know, that's another I recommend, but that obviously, like, because its narrative runs through the entirety of it and is always, each episode is building on the previous one towards its conclusion, that is like, you can't really do the same thing of like recommending a small piece of it in isolation and expecting everyone to get like the full context and understanding. Like you kind of have to commit to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's why, you know, it is the reason why we agreed on like my request to have Jay Decker be on the list and like remove Dagarn, because again, our list was originally larger and like I was kind of initially defaulting to like my top 3 Brave series before being like, okay, now Dagarn is one where it's like, we would probably have to dedicate an entire podcast to Dagarn itself with multiple episodes just to get through it.
Yeah, Dagarn is like is from the sounds of it, it's like something we could make. This could have just been an entire Dagarn podcast if we wanted it to be,
or entire Brave series podcast, really, which you know which would be even more episodes, but would probably mean we would have to deal with the reality of, great, I have to watch all of X Kaiser again.
Also, at that point, it's like, how much is there? Like, after a while, we kind of run out of things to talk about with these episodes. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's another hijinks episode. I guess it was okay.
Yeah. Oh, what are the Dino Geists? What are the Geisters gonna get up to today? Oh, they're a bunch of idiots. Next.
And that's why we're only picking the stuff we like, at least.
The stuff we like, and we know that we can recommend to others, knowing full well that not every show is a 10 out of 10 winner. But it's like you can appreciate them because of what they do unique to themselves, even if they are doing things as well that may not be your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like you may not you at home may not be as into the idea of watching anime that is very clearly designed and marketed towards kids, but sometimes you can run into some kids anime that is able to punch above its own weight and give something of value to older audiences, which for the majority of the Brave series, I'd say is able to actually accomplish that very well.
Yeah.
And Jay Decker, these 2 episodes of Jay Decker are absolutely some of the best proof of that.
I think so. And I'm glad I watched them.
I'm glad that I was able to get this recommendation through. Thanks again, Neff, for being on. An absolute blast talking about Jay Decker and all of the dramatics and the hilarity.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you again for, I'm gonna say having me, but we're a podcasting duo.
Yeah, and obviously thanks everyone at home that listened to this. Tune in next time for our next episode, keeping you on your toes as to what robot anime that we have lined up. But rest assured, the mission remains the same. It's going to be something that we will always recommend.
Okay, before we end things, I have a very important question, though.
Go ahead.
How many people do you think had a sexual awakening watching a Brave series show?
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.